Hi, my name is Nicole Romero, and I am your host for today. Welcome to the Crossings online service. A new service premieres every Saturday on Facebook and YouTube at 5:30, okay? You can watch it with the Crossing host at that time or on Sundays at 9:15 and 11:15. But you can also watch the videos on your own anytime you want to after that. Today, we are starting a brand new 6-part series called Our Finest Hour. If you'd love to stand out at work as a person of value, to lead your family well, to feel prepared for each day's challenges, and look back at this year with pride, Our Finest Hour will help you do just that. So these videos, they kick us off each week. Plus, we have a free daily guide that gets immediately to the point with truth bombs and simple habits that will prepare you to rise to the challenge of each day. So download it for free from our website or app, tell a couple friends, and do it together. Plus, you can also sign up for an optional Crossing group and get the support of great people. To get the guide or to find out about a group, go to thecrossing.com or send us an email at info@thecrossing.com. Now, today, at the end of service, we will do something together that people have done for thousands of years. It's called communion. We will take a drink and then have a bite of bread while we remember that Jesus is alive. No matter how chaotic life seems, he unites us under his power and love. So grab something to drink and a bite of something to eat, and even if you've never taken communion before, we can get ready to take it together at the end of this service. And on our way to that moment, Andrew has a message for us to answer these big questions. How can we lean in and make the most of this crazy time? How can this be our finest hour?
If we are now called upon to endure what they have been suffering, we shall emulate their courage. And if final victory rewards our toils, they shall share the gains. Aye, and freedom shall be restored to all. The whole fury and might of the enemy must very soon be turned on us. Let us, therefore, brace ourselves to our duty. So bear ourselves that if the British Empire and its Commonwealth last for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour.
June 18th, 1940 was one of the bleakest moments in all of human history. Nazi Germany had invaded and forced the surrender of most Western European nations. The French were only days away from surrendering. Hitler and his forces had won battle after battle and looked unstoppable. And as Germany set its eyes upon an invasion of England, Winston Churchill, the brand new prime minister, chose to address his people, the British people. And on June 18th, at 3:49 p.m., Winston Churchill began to speak of all of the challenges England was about to face, the difficult journey they were about to embark on as a nation. And at the very end of his speech, he closed with these famous words. He said, "Let us therefore brace ourselves to our duty, and so bear ourselves that, if the British Empire lasts for 1,000 years, men will still say, this was their finest hour." Now that final line struck a chord with people. That in the face of darkness, that when we face insurmountable odds, that when life looks its bleakest, this is our chance, our day to rise up and make a difference, to make it our finest hour. And while today we don't face a fascist government or an enemy army landing on our shores, one thing is abundantly clear to each of us. Things look bleak today. Riots and racism, politics and a pandemic, unemployment, addiction, hatred and violence, human trafficking, the exploitation of children, the list goes on and on. Things look bad today. That's why we're calling this brand new series Our Finest Hour. Because I wonder what would happen if a group of people today made a decision that on this day, we will not shrink back. We will not surrender to the negativity and the apathy that is affecting so many people, that today will be our finest hour. Maybe for you, it'll be in your marriage. Maybe before the pandemic, your marriage was difficult or a little rocky. But now day in and day out, stuck at home together, you realize something has to change. And instead of giving up, instead of throwing in the towel like so many other people do, today you're gonna lean in and you're gonna do whatever it takes to save your marriage. Or maybe this year, you've never really thought about faith or God. But with all the insanity, with all the chaos that has come our way, you've decided to start exploring, to start asking questions about God and Jesus. And you'll look back at 2020 and you'll say that this was your finest hour because this was the year God changed your life. You see, I want this for each and every one of us. But more importantly, God wants this for each and every one of you. To come out of this season stronger, better than we've ever been. So whatever you're facing, no matter how tired or exhausted or discouraged you are today, God doesn't want something from you. Today, God wants something for you. So here's what I want to ask. I want you to take a moment right now and I want to ask you to share this video. It'll only take you 5 seconds on Facebook or YouTube, but I want you to do it because you never know how God could use this to change someone's life. Now, as we kick off this series over the next few weeks, we're going to be looking at the book of Daniel. It's found in what's called the Old Testament, means it was written before Jesus was born. In fact, the events of the book of Daniel, they occurred about 600 years before Jesus. So if you have a Bible, I want you to open up to Daniel chapter 1. Or if you don't have a Bible nearby, feel free to use our app or even download our app if you haven't done that yet. It's totally free and you can follow along with us in Daniel chapter 1 and even take some notes. Now, as you're doing that, a little background. Now, King Nebuchadnezzar back then was the ruler of Babylon. It was the superpower of the ancient world. One day he goes and attacks the nation of Israel. And after destroying their capital city, Jerusalem, Nebuchadnezzar, he enters the temple. It's dedicated to the God of the Bible. Nebuchadnezzar, he goes into the temple, he takes out all the gold and the silver and all the valuable things and begins to transport them back with him to Babylon, and then he destroys the temple. Now back then this was very common. It was actually a form of Near East trash talk. You see, back then, after you defeated a nation, you would take everything from the temple of their God, and that would just be your way of showing that my God is stronger than your God. And so Nebuchadnezzar does just that. He takes everything of value, destroys the temple, and then he does one last thing, and it's found in Daniel chapter 1, verse 3. Here's what it says. It says, "Then the king ordered Ashpenaz, chief of his court officials, to bring into the king's service some of the Israelites from the royal family and the nobility, young men without any physical defect, handsome, showing aptitude for every kind of learning, well-informed, quick to understand, and qualified to serve in the king's palace." In other words, Nebuchadnezzar says, go and find the best and the brightest. Go find the ones who will be most likely voted to succeed. Go find young men. Now, you need to understand these would have been guys between the ages of 12 and 16. So today, in our day, they'd be middle schoolers or high schoolers. And Nebuchadnezzar says, bring them back to the palace. Now, the king goes on to say in verse 4, he says, teach them the language. In other words, Nebuchadnezzar says, I want them to talk like we all talk. And the literature of the Babylonians, I want them to think like we think. The king assigned them a daily amount of food and wine from the king's table. I want them to eat like we eat. They were to be trained for 3 years, and after that, they were to enter the king's service. Now, here's what I want you to notice. These young guys, just kids, they have been ripped from their homes. They have been forced to leave their families, their friends, their faith, everything they've ever known. And they've been brought to Babylon, where now the king is going to try to pressure them to change who they are and what they believe about themselves. Now, why am I telling you this today? It's because often we find ourselves in a position where it feels like the world around us is trying to change who we are. I mean, often this happens in very subtle ways. For example, you work at a place where everyone cuts corners. I mean, nothing crazy unethical, but just blurring the lines a little. And over time, you find yourself doing the exact same things as those around you. Or in your neighborhood, people drink all the time when they get together. And you don't have an issue with a beer or two, but the more you are around them, the more you feel this pressure to always have a drink, and then another drink, and then another one. You see, we live in a world where there is a constant pressure to change who you are and who you were made to be. This is what's happening to Daniel and his friends. Look what happens next in verse 7. It says, the chief official gave them new names. To Daniel, the name Belteshazzar. To Hananiah, Shadrach. To Mishael, Meshach. And to Azariah, Abednego. Now, even today, you and I, we understand the importance of a name. Our name, it communicates the core essence of who we are. This is why so many celebrities have changed their names over the years or go by a different name today. It's because they know our name communicates something central to who we are. In fact, for just a minute, I want to play a little game with you. I'm going to give you a celebrity's real name, and then I want to ask you just write in the comments on YouTube or Facebook, just if you know their actual name. So get ready, you're going to have to write pretty quick, but I'm going to start with a very easy one. So I'm going to give you their real name, and you tell me what the name they've changed it to. So a real easy one to start, Cassius Clay. Yeah, some of you know this one. Cassius Clay is Muhammad Ali. Or here's one of my favorites, Karen Johnson. Anyone know who Karen Johnson is? Yeah, Whoopi Goldberg. Fun fact, my wife's favorite movie is Sister Act 2, starring Whoopi Goldberg. That's her favorite, in case you're curious. All right, couple more for you. Who is Curtis Jackson? Curtis Jackson. Some of you know who this is. This is 50 Cent. All right, two more for you. One, this is one of my favorites, Thomas Mapplethorpe IV. Who is Thomas Mapplethorpe IV? Yeah, I bet a couple of you know this one. That's Tom Cruise. And then one last one, Ron Artest. I'll give you a second. Ron Artest, write in the comments who Ron Artest is today. I bet some of you are thinking Meta World Peace. If that's you, I want you to know you're wrong. He's actually changed his name yet again. His name is now Meta Sandiford Artest. See, we all know the importance of a name. Parents, some of you parents who are watching this, you know the importance of a name. In fact, I've never met a parent, when they're picking the name for their child, they just randomly choose any old name of a baby book that they open. They don't just point to a page, pick a name and say, good enough. No, if you're a parent, you meticulously choose a name that encapsulates the hope and the dreams you have for that child. In fact, our oldest son, his name is Evan. And the story behind his name is that there was a period of time where my wife and I, we were trying to get pregnant, and month after month, pregnancy test after pregnancy test came back negative. This led for us feeling anxious, wondering if maybe something was wrong, maybe we would never be able to have kids. And then after about a year, one day, Melissa shared the good news with me that we were pregnant. And we landed on the name Evan, which means God has been gracious to us. Because in that moment, we felt it to our core that God has been and will continue to be so gracious to us. Now, Evan has a brother. His name is Keller. Now, we named Keller after a longtime pastor in New York, Tim Keller, whose writings on grace and forgiveness in Jesus have had a tremendous impact in our lives and in our faith. You see, our names, they are key to our identity. And so when Nebuchadnezzar decides to change the names of Daniel and his friends, this isn't just some random Bible fact. This is a big deal. He's trying to change who they are and what they believe about themselves. He's trying to change their very identity. And the very same thing happens today. So often we go through our lives and we allow circumstances and other people to give us a name, an identity that changes who we are meant to be. So very briefly, we're going to look at some of the names Daniel and his friends are given and the message behind them. And I want to encourage you, if you haven't been taking notes up until this moment, I want to encourage you to do that, because these are the same challenges and a lot of times the very same messages we receive from our culture today. So let's jump in with the first one. Daniel, his name means God is my judge. And his name, it's changed to Belteshazzar, which means lady, protect the king. Now here's the message behind this name. The message behind it is you are an embarrassment. Now, let me explain it to you. This name is given, lady, protect the king, as a way to mock and emasculate Daniel. There was a movie that came out when I was a kid called Sandlot. I don't know if any of you have seen that. You can write me in the comments if you've seen Sandlot. But it follows a bunch of kids, about 10 to 12 years old. They're playing baseball. And there's this scene where they're on their field and another rival team shows up. And this argument ensues and they start trash talking. These two teams, they start trash talking each other. And then the catcher, this loudmouth kid named Porter, he throws out what he believes, not what I believe, but what he believes is the ultimate insult. You remember what he says to that other kid? He says, "You play ball like a girl." Now that kid Porter, his goal is to do the exact same thing Nebuchadnezzar does, to embarrass and to humiliate. And truth be told, some of us, we've felt in our lives embarrassed and humiliated. I mean, maybe you have a boss who delights in making you look foolish or dumb. Or maybe you have a family member or a spouse who's always pointing out your mistakes, always criticizing, always seeing your flaws and telling other people about them. You see, to some of us over time, we begin to believe I'm a joke. There's something wrong with me. And you pick up this name, like Daniel. Let's keep moving. Second name, Hananiah. The name Hananiah means God has been gracious. And he's given the name because it's a reminder that we have a God who is loving and kind and quick to forgive. That's what it means. And his name is changed to Shadrach, which means I am fearful of God. The idea here is God doesn't care about you. If anything, God is out there waiting to punish you for any mistakes you may have made. You see, the message here is real obvious. It's that you aren't good enough. See, a lot of people, they go through life believing, especially when it comes to God. You know, a while back, I invited a friend to church. with me, and he gave me this classic line. You may have heard it if you've invited people to church. He said, "Andrew, if I ever showed up to church, the roof would cave in on me." It was just his way of saying that if God does exist, there is no way I'm going to be good enough to show up at a church. You see, somewhere along the line, he got the message. You better be perfect. You better not mess up. You better not make mistakes, because if you do, be afraid. Because God is out there just waiting to punish you for it. You see, some of you, this is the truth about you. Some of you today, you're watching because you grew up with this picture of God being angry and judgmental, and you're watching here not because you want to meet with God, not because you want to experience his love and goodness, because you're meeting with him just because you want to keep God happy. You see, you live a life where you're constantly plagued with feelings of shame for not praying more, or reading the Bible more, or attending church more. And so you believe to your core, I'm just simply not good enough. A third name, Mishael, means who can compare to my God? No one. It's a statement of praise, of worship. And his name gets changed to Meshach, which means I am despised and hated. The message here is your mistakes define who you are. I mean, take a moment right now. Think about your biggest regrets and the mistakes you've made. That divorce, or that bankruptcy, or that time you got behind the wheel when you had too much to drink. That time you blew a major project where everyone was counting on you at work. You see, so often we go through life and these mistakes, they hang with us, they stick to us, and we think they define us. And just personally for me, this is the one I struggle with. You know, I hate making mistakes. I beat myself up when I make even the littlest mistakes. You know, forgetting to call someone back, or being slow to respond to a text. Years ago, I had a boss who one day, I think I showed up to a meeting, I was about 5 minutes late. And I stuck around after the meeting was over to apologize. And we talked for a few minutes about some other work stuff. And then I apologized again for being late. And right as I was about to leave, for a third time, I apologized to this boss of mine. And in that moment, he did something so wise. He stopped me. And he said, "Andrew, why do you feel the need to apologize for something as little as being 5 minutes late 3 times? And here's the truth about me. It's because I am tempted to believe that my mistakes, they define me. I mean, maybe you're wrestling with this one like me today. One last one. Finally, Azariah, which means God has helped. It gets changed to Abednego, which means I am a servant of Nebo. Now, a servant is only as valuable as what they accomplish, what they produce. So the message here is really clear. You are what you do. We see this all the time in our culture because the first question we ask someone when we're getting to know them is what? What's your name? And it's followed by a very quick second question. What do you do? Right? What do you accomplish? In fact, I bet when meeting someone, you are more likely to forget their name and remember what they do than the other way around. You see, that question, what do you do? It is often code for how important are you? Do you work somewhere prestigious? Do you have influence or money or power? It's also why people often will say things like, "Oh, I'm just a stay-at-home mom," or "I'm just a stay-at-home dad." Because many of us believe if I'm not accomplishing something out there in the world, if I don't have a prestigious job, I'm not really doing anything. Jim Carrey, who has made more money and experienced more fame than probably any of us will ever, he is famous for saying this: "I hope everybody could get rich and famous and will have everything they ever dreamed of, so that they will know that it is not the answer." You see, Jim Carrey found that no matter what you do, no matter what you have, no matter what accomplishments are tied into your name, it will never be enough. It will never fulfill that deepest need and deepest longing. You see, you and I, we go through life and we pick up a name, a belief about ourselves. Names like loser, or screw up, or divorced twice, or fat, or addict, or nobody. And we begin to think, well, this is just who I am. I'm an embarrassment. I'll never be good enough. My mistakes define me, or I am what I do. Which brings us to the question, what do we do? How do we get rid of the lies and the messages we have received over the years? Well, about 700 years after Daniel, there was this small community of Jesus followers. And their situation, it was very similar to Daniel's. Very similar actually to us today even. You see, this community of Jesus followers, they lived during a very difficult time. They lived in a city with a lot of political and a lot of social upheaval. There was a lot of cultural pressure to become something you were never meant to be. And then one day, this little community of Jesus followers, they received a message from Jesus, a letter. And at the very end of the letter, Jesus tells this group of people who are in a very difficult spot, he says this. He says, I will also give that person a white stone with a new name written on it, known only to the one who receives it. You see, we go through life and we get beat up. We make mistakes. We have doubts and uncertainties. We try and we fail. And all of these things stick to us. And yet, in the midst of all of this, Jesus comes to us and he offers us a new name, a new identity. Not because of how great or special or how gifted you are, but because of who he is. You know, there's two practices we have around here at the Crossing that reflect this. You know, one thing we do is every month we do something called baptism. This is our public response to the inward work God has done in us. And right before baptism, we give people a shirt and we ask them to just write a word on a shirt, a word which reflects what Jesus has done in their lives. And just for me, one of my favorite things to do is to watch people whose stories are things like, you know, I believed I was alone in this world. And then Jesus showed up in my life. And now I know I am loved and cared for. And so they write the word loved on their shirt. Or they'll say things like, I was a total screw up, and then Jesus forgave me. And then they'll write the word forgiven. And afterwards, they'll always ask, they'll say, hey, Andrew, can I keep the shirt? I always respond, I'm like, of course, it's been written on. What am I going to do with a shirt that's been written on? But here's the real reason we let you keep it. It's because we don't ever want you to forget that Jesus has given you a new name, loved, forgiven, blessed, made new. You see, I don't know the name that Jesus has for you, but he does. See, in a few weeks, we're going to celebrate another baptism. If you want more info on baptism, you can send us an email at info@thecrossing.com, and we'd love to share that with you, but it is a declaration that God has a new name for us. Second practice we have around here is communion. This is where we gather and we remember that the new life, the new name we have been given, it comes at great cost. John 15:13 says this, greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends. And that is what he did. Jesus gave up his life on our behalf. He died so that we could live. He offers to take every sin, every mistake, every wound you and I have ever received, and he offers us a new name and a new life. And so for 2,000 years, churches, as they've gathered together, they have eaten a piece of bread that signifies Jesus' body broken on our behalf, and juice that represents his blood poured out for the forgiveness of our sins. And so here's what we're going to do in just a minute here online. Online together, we're going to get a chance to participate in communion together. And so in a moment, Kimi and the band, they're going to sing another song over us. And here's what I'd love to ask of you. I want to ask you if you consider yourself a follower of Jesus, to just find some bread and juice around your house. If you don't have bread or juice, that's okay. Find something to substitute. You could use crackers and a Pepsi if you need to. But then I want you to come back, because at the end of this song, we're going to get a chance to remember the God who so loves you, that he gave his son up for you and offers you new life. And then as you're listening to Kimi and the band play this song over you, I want you to reflect on 2 questions. First question I want you to think about is, which of these 4 messages we've just talked about are you most likely to believe about yourself? That you're an embarrassment, or you aren't good enough, or your mistakes define who you are, or you are what you do. Which of those speaks clearest to you? Which has the most power in your life, and why? And then the second question I want you to reflect on is, what is one thing you need to do this week, to remind yourself of the love and purpose and forgiveness that Jesus has for you? So find some supplies for communion. Think about those questions as Kimi and the band sing over us, and then we'll take communion together.
Who am I that the highest king would welcome me? I was lost, but he brought me in. Know his love for me. Yes, his love for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. Oh, free at last, he has ransomed me. His grace runs deep. While I was a slave to sin, Jesus died for me. Yes, he died for me. Who the sun sets free, oh, is free indeed. I'm a child of God. Yes, I am. In my Father's house, there's a place for me. I'm a child
in this together. As we each lean into the name and identity God gives to us, we remember that it is Jesus who unites us. The early Christians, you know how they got that name? They were so different. All these different people, Jews, Greeks, men, women, rich, poor, people gathering that would never be together otherwise. That when outsiders were trying to figure out how to describe them, they used the one thing they had in common: Christ, Christians. So as we prepare to take communion together, remember that no matter our differences, we have Christ in common. Our diversity is a strength because loving each other across our differences is what makes us stand out as Christians. Our first identity is in Christ. So if you are ready to believe that for the first time or for the 1,000th time, let's take communion together and let's pray as we do it. Jesus, as we pick up this little piece of bread, we remember your love and forgiveness. We remember your words on that last night with your friends. As you took the bread and you broke it and you said, "This is my body, which is for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And we take the bread. We do this and we remember the sacrifice and love of Jesus. We invite Jesus into our lives. And in the same way, after supper, Jesus, you took the cup and you said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me. For whenever you eat this bread and drink this cup, you proclaim the Lord's death until he comes." And so we do this together and remember the death and life of Jesus. Amen. Thank you for participating in communion together. No matter what you used, whether you had a piece of toast or a cracker, some coffee or some grape juice, it doesn't matter. What matters is that we are united in this. You know, that question Andrew asked us, what is one thing you need to do this week to remind yourself of the love, purpose, and forgiveness Jesus has for you? Well, we have created a Finest Hour guide to help you do just that. Here's how it works. It's a free daily guide that gets immediately to the point with a little truth bomb and a simple habit that will prepare you to rise to the challenge of each day. So you get it on our website, thecrossing.com, or you can use our app, The Crossing CM. You even could pick up a physical guide if you want to on our on-campus gatherings Sundays at 9:15. Go through it with your family or a friend. We can promise that if you give 5 minutes a day to this guide, it will renew your strength. Plus, you can always sign up for an optional Crossing group and get the support of great people through this time. Send an email to info@thecrossing.com to find out more. We know that in Jesus we receive care, and we also give care too. The Crossing is participating in a citywide event called Love Costa Mesa on October 3rd. It's all about serving our community, and we have projects that are family friendly, we have projects that are low contact or no contact or in person if you're comfortable with that. Everyone can participate. So go to thecrossing.com/lovecostamesa to find out more. And of course, if you want to make a difference today, give a donation to The Crossing. There is no better investment. Every day, The Crossing helps people in practical ways and sees lives changed for the better. Be a part of it by supporting this place financially. You can give through our app, you can give online, you can set up reoccurring giving and never miss a chance to change people's lives. Today, get your Finest Hour guide, and we will see you online all the time or on campus Sundays at 9:15. Bye, you guys.